whoa. There we go. Hey, hey, hey. A little inside the operation deal here is what happened was I typically use my mic because it just sounds better than the audio that comes off the laptop. So I'll just use my mic. But I disconnected the mic because I want to talk to all of you and use the phone. And when I did that, it automatically, for some reason, puts it on mute without it letting me know. Navy Thomas, thanks so much for the call. And we will start all over again. Everything I had to say about Cincinnati, the Pac-12, college football cancellations tomorrow, out the door. All right. And certainly, Navy Thomas, because that was your one call to save the show, we are going to waive the one call rule for Navy Thomas's sake. So Navy Thomas, you can certainly call in anytime you'd like, because Navy Thomas stepped in here and saved the big show. All right. So I was just letting you all know, of course, to jump in the live chat, leave your comments, your questions, your debate topics. As always, I will get to all the comments and all the questions directed toward me. And I know you guys have a fun time just talking to each other. That's why it's there. I was just commenting that Cincinnati remains unscathed. Another impressive win for the Bearcats. They have not been challenged this year, not really, not past halftime. 55-17 over East Carolina. We know the Pirates aren't good, but still, Cincinnati does what they're supposed to do. They go out and maul another opponent. Interesting scenario in the Pac-12. I was talking about this when nobody could hear me out there. So some of you probably enjoyed that. I probably have a few critics in the live chat possibly that were like, yeah, we can't hear Mark, big deal. We are going to get into the situation in the Pac-12 in which logistically this makes sense. In terms of the difficulty placed on the players and the coaches, not so much. So in any particular conference, we've talked about this in the past, especially in those conferences, Big Ten, Pac-12, that are playing late, that got their players and their teams on the field late, that they had no wiggle room to manage a schedule and deal with cancellations and postponements, that if there was the opportunity where 2 games were canceled and there was only one team in each game that was the cause of the cancellation, that you take the 2 teams that are clean, you take those 2 teams and you match them up. I was actually just posed that question on ESPN Radio Los Angeles. So I just did a 10-minute hit on Scott Kaplan's show. So I appreciate him reaching out to me on Twitter and asking me to come on his show in Los Angeles, and hopefully our platform here will gain some notoriety and some more followers based on doing a 10-minute hit out there in Los Angeles. Pretty big market from what I understand on ESPN Radio. So he asked me if that was fair, if that was reasonable for 2 teams, meaning, let's see if I've got this straight, Utah cannot play against UCLA. Cal cannot play against their opponent. I forget who that is. Anyway, Cal and UCLA both can play. So they were supposed to be in different locations. And now it's been determined by the Pac-12 that we're going to match up Cal and UCLA to play. So logistically, it makes complete sense based on trying to make up games in which the Pac-12 opened its season last week. 12 teams, 6 games. They had 2 out of 6 canceled. They were already going to have 2 more canceled this week. So the Pac-12 already starting later than everyone else, playing an abbreviated 6-game schedule, already had 4 games out of 12 canceled. That's the worst rate in college football among all the conferences so far. Made the move to get 2 of the teams that are clean, that are cleared based on the COVID guidelines to be able to play. Now, this puts a toll on the players and the coaches, and especially the coaches who have to game plan and prepare for a particular opponent and have to travel elsewhere. And this just being decided on Friday for a game that's going to be played now on Sunday, not on Saturday, on Sunday between UCLA and Cal. So college football fans, we're going to have a game on Sunday. So if you really want to watch college football and not the other stuff, then you're going to get a taste of UCLA and Cal on Sunday. All right, I'm going to jump in the live chat in just a second. I want to remind everyone that the super chat is on. And you can contribute whether you can hear me or not. Maybe I should have continued without the sound, and maybe I would have gotten more super chat contributions. We also have Patreon available. So if you go to the link that we provided in the description section of any of the videos that says Patreon, grab that link. I only have about 12 more hours to brag about this, but 16-4 against the spread last weekend. 16-4. I can't guarantee that every weekend, but 80% against the spread. That's quite a few ball games. 20 games. 16-4 against the spread last weekend. So join us on Patreon. What you get in addition to my predictions, which will come later tonight for you patrons who are looking for my picks, I'll get them out there soon. Right after we're done here, I'll be working on the picks. You get my predictions. You get a lock of the week from Steve Merrill. You get our insider look into MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. You get our exclusive live stream per request. And you also get the watch parties. All right, that's on Patreon. Again, I had a hit on ESPN Radio Los Angeles tonight. So I'm hoping to be getting a file to download that I can post right here on the YouTube channel so you can hear my appearance on ESPN Radio. Shop Amazon. Christmas is coming. See the crawl down below? Amazon. Please shop at Amazon. I probably don't need to encourage any of you to shop on Amazon. I think they do pretty well by themselves. But shop Amazon. Use the link in the description section. Help build the channel. All right, let's get to it. It's time to break out the glasses, unfortunately. This is the dreaded part of the show. Hate to do this. Only 20 online. What's going on here? All right. I apologize for being a little bit late. Normally, I would have come on right after the Iowa-Minnesota game. But again, I did the radio hit for ESPN Los Angeles. Therefore, I had to wait till that was done. LeBrent, good to see you. Junior as well. Got Young Kids Midwest in here. Navy Thomas, of course. Bo, good to see you. Uh-oh, that's when it started right there. Can't hear you. No audio. Oh, boy. All right. As George pointed out, I'm not surprised by that comment. We don't need any sound. We can just hang out in the chat. Sure you can. Eli, Cincinnati looks pretty good. They might legitimately be one of the 4 best teams in the country. No, they are not one of the 4 best teams in the country. They may be deserving of a playoff spot, though. All right, we got David here. We got Mickey. Eli starting up the chat here with its own question. The best college football movie of all time. Oh, my goodness. College football? Well, you've got Rudy, which I've never seen. Maybe I lose my title as the voice of college football, having never seen Rudy. David Knight would be ashamed of me. Best college football movie of all time. Newt Rockne, All-American. Wow, you guys are going to have to throw some out there. I'm not coming up with any right now. There you go. Rudy. The Junction Boys. I did see that. Oh, you got to hear my voice, George. I thought you were doing better without it. Eli lets us know that Cincinnati could beat Clemson. Okay. We condition that every time with the understanding that a ton of teams could beat a ton of other teams. on a particular day. Could Cincinnati, if they played Clemson every day, would they ever beat Clemson? Yes. I believe that they would at some point. But that is not reasonable to think that Cincinnati, most of the time, if Cincinnati walked on the field with Clemson, and maybe we'll get to see this game, I would love it. I would like to see a group of 5 team make it. Or I would like to see a group of 5 team that should make it get snubbed, and then we can really raise hell, because the group of 5 right now is being pandered to a certain extent, because they truly don't have a shot at making the playoffs, and that's been proven over and over. If you go 13-0 and you can't make the playoffs, then that's pretty much a determining factor that it's not going to happen. So why rank the teams anyway? The College Football Playoff Selection Committee almost insults the group of 5 teams by ranking them, but not allowing them to go to the playoffs. And maybe there's going to be a year in which there's going to be one team like a Cincinnati that's so overwhelming over some Power 5 champions that lose 2 and 3 games that it will fall into place for a group of 5 team. But it's going to have to be just perfect. And maybe this is the year. If Cincinnati goes undefeated and Ohio State, Alabama, and Clemson or Notre Dame represent those 3 conferences, then there's a chance, because Oklahoma State already has 1 loss and the Pac-12 is not going to play that many games. And if their champion has 1 loss compared to an undefeated Cincinnati team, I would take the undefeated Cincinnati team over a Pac-12 team that lost a game, won the conference championship, and played a limited number of games, probably just 7. And Cincinnati's going to play 11, I believe. The throat needs some help tonight. Eli, BYU is better than Florida. No, they're not. All right. They're not. John was worried there for a second. Thought he was going deaf there. Go Cincinnati. People rooting for Cincinnati. And I get it. I am too. I just want chaos. That's what I want every year, because I want the college football playoff debunked. It's an invitational. It's not a playoff. There's a difference. A playoff is a system in which you have an objective structure in place that determines which teams make the playoff. Here we've got 13 people who sit in a room and decide who make the playoff. Why those 13 people? Why them? Do they know more about college football than anybody else? Young Kids Midwest, UC is dominating to prove a point. Got Snake Spence here. We got Cheryl moderating out of her mind. Thank you, George, for letting everyone know. Let's get that up there. Let's get the, we'll get the phone number up here in just a second. Bam. Oh, there we go. Actually, I wanted it like this. Yeah. Tony Gerdeman, our friend over on Buckeye Scoop, tweeted the other day that what about this scenario? What about this scenario? Maybe Indiana loses just 1 game to Ohio State. Ohio State goes undefeated, or vice versa. And Notre Dame continues on to the ACC championship game, wins it. Cincinnati makes it into the playoff. There's your 4-team playoff. If Alabama, yeah. He had a whole scenario out there that is feasible, could happen. And he got 4 Midwestern teams from the states of Ohio and Indiana into the college football playoff. That would be something. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's George.
George, you get to hear me now.
Yeah, I can
What's going on?
I just typed "I'm on" and put it in the chat while I'm talking to you. That's called multitasking.
Well done by you.
Takes a little bit of effort, but I can do it if I want to.
You are everywhere.
I am.
I don't know how you do it.
Hey, you know what? You have to admit, I've been a good sport the last few years when Florida was losing to Georgia.
Yes, you
joking
will.
around, having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
But the Gators are the apex predator again. I like being back where we belong.
I got to say, George, you jump in this chat all the time, and I see you jump in other chats, and you are supportive of Miami and all these other teams. You always give us a yay, Nebraska, or whomever it is. You just love college football.
I'm even supportive of Georgia because I'm a people person, Mark. I like pleasing people. I know how they feel. I love Nebraska. I love Georgia if they're not playing against us. I'm for everybody.
Okay. So you haven't converted to an Oregon fan since you've been out there, though.
Yeah, at least with Oregon, it's not personal like Penn State. I'm never going to get over Joe Paul walking out of that shower that day.
I get that.
Just
Yep,
forget
I get that.
Yeah, that's sad because I'm from Pennsylvania. I was born in Gainesville, but I was raised in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And everyone worshipped Penn State,
Sure.
That was kind of painful. Anyway, it feels good to be an apex predator again. We keep the landscape clean. We're like the Lions. It's down to us in Alabama and maybe one or two other teams.
You and Alabama. In the SEC, it's down to you and Alabama, or are you talking about everywhere? It's down to you too.
I'm talking about the national title. We're both going to go. No matter who loses between Florida and Alabama, we're both going to the playoffs. Neither one of us are going to lose to anybody, except one of us is going to lose to each other. And you're still going. So find two other teams to join us. That's impossible to avoid.
You're going to go to the playoff even if you lose the SEC championship game, is what you're telling me.
Absolutely. With one loss to Texas A&M by 3 points with 1 second to go.
Sure.
We're a juggernaut. And plus, we will beat Alabama. It will be Alabama that gets in because they're Alabama, not us. Because we're us. We're going to beat them. Kyle Trask don't play. That guy didn't wait 10 years to start for nothing.
What a great story.
Yeah. Have you ever seen anybody throw a football like that dude? I'm not calling you dude. I'm calling him dude. Have you ever seen anybody throw a football like that dude? I mean, he's a gunslinger.
There have been a few around that have spun it pretty well.
Okay, you're right. Dan Marino comes to mind.
Dan Marino, and then nobody that could be compared until Kyle Trask. Okay.
Exactly. It's a reincarnation.
George, I always appreciate you letting everyone know that they should support us on Amazon, but please don't overestimate the amount of money that I get from Amazon.
I know. I meant to put like 7 more zeros in there.
Okay. That would be more accurate.
I hope they realize that. There actually is no manual you can refer to. There's no answer to that question. It's like whatever they give you, they give you.
Oh, it's impossible to know whether they're ripping you off. Exactly.
It is not possible. Even Bill Gates couldn't find out that information. It's all proprietary, Yeah. That's limited to YouTube and Google. Bill Gates isn't privy to that. He have the Microsoft information. It's all proprietary. They'll let you know when they let you know.
So you guys play Arkansas tomorrow.
Huh?
You guys play Arkansas tomorrow.
Yeah, God. Thank God there's one big game tomorrow. I'm a Gator, and I'm not even taking Arkansas for granted. Felipe Franks,
You shouldn't.
If he gets hot, that's scary. He can run like 3 times for 45 yards, pass for 3 touchdowns. So I think we'll cover the 17, but then again, I'll be happy with a 1-point win. I respect Arkansas.
Yeah, they're a fun little story. I'm having fun watching Arkansas. I like to see teams get off the deck after they've been beaten up and kicked around for a couple of years. It's nice to see.
How can you not love them? I mean, gosh, they beat Auburn. They're really 4-2. This upsets me bad that they got that. I can't believe they don't get back into just the game after the fact. Oh, it's because of Vegas. We can't change that, right? Otherwise, you'd have to go back and pay everybody off. I'm sorry. We have to take back the money we gave you for winning and give it to the guys that lost over here. So that's not going to happen. But anyways, worst case scenario, the playoffs this year are Cincinnati, Marshall, BYU, and who's the other one? I forget. It's about come down to that, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, if you take all the undefeated teams, yeah, you can throw in Coastal Carolina. But that's we can have fun with that, George, but it ain't going to happen.
We really could. And I can't believe they're ranking. I have nothing against Oregon. I'm just not jumping on the bandwagon until they win a couple of national championships, you know? When I first came to Oregon, I couldn't believe they had a team called the Ducks and the Beavers. I laughed for years about that. I mean, actual laughter. You know, every time somebody would say Ducks and Beavers, because I always thought Beaver was, a euphemism for something else.
Well,
you know?
I think some of us do have that cross our mind at times. I want to let everybody know out there. I would like everyone out there to know that for the people that have called in while George has been on the line, if you call back, I will get to your call. Go ahead, George.
No, I'm done. I want to be like Navy Thomas. I get a second call if I feel like it. I'll let you go.
No, that was a Navy Thomas making a service call there. So that's a special dispensation there.
Hey.
Okay, George.
Friday the 13th in March.
We appreciate it.
Shut down this country.
Thanks, man.
All right.
All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. This is Dave Greenfield. How you doing?
David, I'm doing just fine. For a few minutes there, I didn't have much of a voice, did I?
No, I was going to say, I was debating whether you sounded better with the voice or without the voice, but you know what, Mark? You sound good with the voice. You could go either way, Mark. Either way, you're doing well.
Whatever it takes.
I just want you to know, you've got my support either way, Mark.
I know that, David. That is much appreciated.
Well, I just wanted to say, Mark, I want to respond to something that you said that was commented in the chat, and I've got to take a little umbrage. I would not be so quick to say that BYU could. Well, okay, you're not saying that BYU could not beat Florida. You're just saying that, are you using your out of 10 scenario where Florida wins a lot more, or what do you think on that one?
Absolutely. So I made the same comment about Cincinnati and Clemson.
Okay.
It is not an impossibility that Cincinnati could beat Clemson. You know, of course, we've seen Pitt teams and Syracuse teams take Clemson to the wire or beat them over the past 5 years, and we've seen other monumental upsets in college football. But I just don't see either one of those happening. I don't. And I know BYU is a good football team, but who has BYU played and beaten?
Sure. Okay.
I'm looking at Florida as one of the 7 or 8 best teams in college football, and I'm looking at BYU as one of the 40 best teams in college football.
You said 40 best teams?
40.
But 4-0.
Yes.
Okay.
I think everybody's getting fooled by this undefeated record. This is not, this BYU team isn't much different than the ones we see play year to year that go 6-6.
You said last week that BYU would beat Cincinnati on a neutral field. Do you stick
by that?
I said that?
Okay.
That wasn't me.
You said that. Okay.
I didn't say that.
You think BYU is better positioned to be a playoff team than Cincinnati?
No, they shouldn't be. Not with their schedule.
Okay.
No, Cincinnati's playing a much more difficult schedule.
Well, here's what I would say if BYU matched up against Florida. First of all, I've watched Florida's defense, and it's not very good. It's just not. I mean, Javon Curse ain't walking through that door anytime soon.
I understand that, but the competition level is so much better.
I agree, but I tell you what, I've watched Wilson, the quarterback from BYU, play. And to me, he's never been as good as Kellen Mond, who tore up the Florida defense. Well, better than Kellen Mond. He's a pro prospect, Mark, I think. What do you think?
Oh, I think he is a pro prospect. Yes, he is a pro prospect. Yes. There are all sorts. We have all sorts of examples of quarterbacks in the NFL who played on Group of 5 teams that get their brains beat in by Power 5 teams, and they still made it to the NFL. They played on teams that had 3 to 5 NFL players, and they played teams that had 25 NFL players or 30.
I just think that Wilson could do some damage against that Florida defense. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, he could do some damage, and they could lose 45-21.
Okay. I think he can put up more than 21 points against Florida's defense.
I just don't see it. I've just seen this play out just too many times. There's just this Cincinnati team. I can't make a judgment on this Cincinnati team compared to last year's, but they got to be pretty comparable. That Cincinnati team last year went 11-2. And one of those losses was against Ohio State, and we know how close that game was.
Yeah, I get it. Well, first of all, I've got to say, I think they caught an Ohio State team that was clicking, and you know how good I feel about that Ohio State team. I think that Ohio State team last year is actually, if we listed some of the most talented Ohio State teams of all time, that's on the short list of most talented Ohio State teams of all time last year. So, I mean, they didn't catch, let's say, an Ohio State team that was maybe not like last year. They caught Ohio State at the height of their game last year, which was unfortunate for them, and we saw how that turned out. So that's not the judgment, because they ran into a buzzsaw. That's basically what I'm saying, Mark. Right? Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, it's a fair assessment. Yeah, but we just watched Florida. See, let's evaluate Georgia for a second. And we're all going to sit here, and a number of people are going to make an assessment of Georgia based on playing high caliber competition and say they can't throw the ball, they can't do this. That yes, their quarterback situation for the expectation level is horrendous. But if you put Georgia on the field against BYU, their athletes would and their offensive line and they would make life hell on Zach Wilson. At full strength, I just think that their defensive front would terrorize. There would be so many tackles for losses, and it would just be difficult for him. Sure, he would make plays. It wouldn't be a complete. I'm not talking about 55-3 or anything like that. It could be. It could be a situation where Georgia gets out early and they're up 21-3 and they coast home to a win, or it's a 17-14 game at half and it's a really good game, but Georgia beats them still by 20 points at the end.
So you would even think a Georgia team that starts like the Juan Mathis, who can't even complete like a 10-yard out, to drop that many points on BYU, because he did not look solid as a passer last week. I watched pretty much his entire outing as a quarterback, and he didn't look good, Mark.
Sure. I completely agree with you. I went on and on after that game on here about how either I would be fascinated to know, and we'll never know, if DeJuan Mathis would be coached by Ryan Day or Lincoln Riley, whether they would have made a quarterback out of him, Or what was everybody missing? Because this kid's an athlete playing quarterback. The throwing, the mechanics, everything is pretty atrocious. It's awful.
Yeah, it was, and you know what? I think that was just basically Kirby bleaching. You know, he realized that the JT Daniels experiment did not work out. So let's try that. I'm sorry, not the JT Daniels, but Stephanie Bennett wasn't working out. So let's try Mathis again and see if that works. See if that gets, something clicking with that offense. But you're right. You know what? I want to feel for Georgia fans, but I have to say, if there's ever a school that's just wasting top-notch recruiting classes right now, it's them. You know what I mean? With all the talent, I would add, Mark, I think that Georgia, I don't know if you've seen this, produces more NFL players per capita than any state in the country. Is that accurate?
I know that it's very close. I've seen, depending on your time reference, it's very close with Louisiana. Yes, Georgia's right there. And you know what's funny? I just read this in the last few weeks, that if you go beyond the state requirement, the District of Columbia per capita produces more NFL players than anywhere. But yes, Georgia and Louisiana. Yes, it's the Atlanta metro area is phenomenal.
Sure. Yeah, I saw the numbers of the top 5 states with players on NFL rosters. I think, the top 3 make sense, which are California, Florida, Texas. Georgia was 4, and then I think Ohio was 5th.
Yep.
Which, Ohio's still hanging in there at 5th. Although their numbers are a little bit down from previous years, but, still a solid 5th. But yeah, like we talked about before, the number of quarterbacks coming out of the state of Georgia is just unbelievable the last few years. Watson, Lawrence, Fields, all these quarterbacks, and but why would a quarterback go to Georgia right now when you can't get developed, and play in an offense where you can succeed? This was the discussion that we had before, Mark, and I just don't see it going forward. It's just such a waste with the talent that they've got. I don't know if you still see it the same way.
Well, I see it the same way that they have, I hate to use the word fail, based on the expectations, have failed in the quarterback selection and development. I think it has more to do with development. Well, there was a selection issue, obviously, once they signed Justin Fields. I don't think that's going to... There are enough capable quarterbacks coming out of the high school ranks that, yeah, the number 1 guy, the number 2 guy, the number 3 guy may be a little bit leery about Georgia's inability to develop and think, okay, I'll go play at one of these other places. But they're still going to get good enough quarterback play prospects to come there. I don't see that as an issue. Maybe they don't get the Trevor Lawrence or the Justin Fields because this is, people talk and it's on social media and these kids are well educated about what the word is out there. And if they get a bad reputation, and it's well earned at this point of not developing quarterbacks, then yeah, it's going to hurt them to get the generational type talent guy.
No, I agree. Hey, by the way, I heard your appearance on Steve Gates' podcast this week, and boy, talk about a somber soul that's pretty much out on his hero growing up, which is Jim Harbaugh.
It's too bad.
That was not good. I have to say, Mark. By the way, I listened to Steve Merrill's picks. I'm going to take Wisconsin tomorrow minus 3.5 points. I know they've been off for a few weeks, but that secondary that they've got up there is just awful, by the way. It does not look good. I think you can pick it apart. What do you think?
I think the same thing.
Maybe that's fool's gold because it's a 3.5 points.
Sure.
But I know they've been off for a few weeks, but really good quarterback, bad secondary. Maybe my 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4 here, but You tell me where I'm going wrong.
Well, the conventional thought is that so Wisconsin hasn't played for a couple of weeks. That's not good, but they did play the one game. So they're going to be well rested. You can look at it that way. And they were so sharp against Illinois. Now, Illinois is probably the worst team in the league, but we can trust Wisconsin's year-to-year productivity, and their defense should be really good. And Michigan, if Michigan was coming into this game at least with some semblance of a running game, I would think possibly a bit different about it, but they've not been able to run the ball. And Wisconsin has a better run defense. Now, we haven't seen them, so I'm projecting should have a better run defense than Indiana this year.
Well, see, you know what? That's where I thought that they would be a little bit better. See, here's the thing. The one, and I think this point about their ability to develop players. I will say that this is where I think Harbaugh has missed in a few areas. Number one, he's not been able to recruit the right quarterback, although I think Joe Milton could be better than a lot of the quarterbacks they've had. But in many ways, that's like being named the valedictorian of summer school. It doesn't carry with it a whole lot of, merit. So what I'm saying here, and you made this point on his podcast, that you think Bill could have a future, and he's got the reasons that they're losing, which I tend to agree with you on. But I would say going forward, I think he's got a possibility. I actually think Haskins, the running back, has some talent. I think where Gates' point about their inability to develop players, this is what Harbaugh has missed. Harbaugh has not developed a really good coaching staff when he's been up there. I don't know about you, but I did not see a lot of his assistants that really blow me away. Now, I know Ohio State went up there and got Al Washington and they got Madison. But you can tell good assistant coaches, because you know what good assistant coaches do? They eventually become head coaches at other programs.
Yeah.
And, that's what Urban Meyer was doing at Ohio State. His assistants maybe stayed a couple of years and they left. You know why they left? Because they had coaching jobs. And that's where they're not recruiting at a bad level up there. They're not recruiting at Ohio State level, but there's only 2 programs in the country that are recruiting at Ohio State level. But they're recruiting at a level high enough to where they should be better than they are. I'll concede that point. And I think Gates' point about their lack of being able to develop players is true. And I think that has a lot to do with the coaching staff that Harbaugh's put around it. Because assistant coaches are designed to do 2 things. A, they're designed to recruit, and B, they're designed to develop players. And I just don't think the guys ever put together really good staff. He's got one decent assistant up there right now that I can see. That's Ed Warner, who was a good offensive line coach at Ohio State. And developed a really good offensive line the first 3 years at Ohio State. And, oh my goodness, the biggest mistake Urban did was make him as the offensive coordinator once Tom Herman went to go get a job.
Sure. Yeah.
And that was not a hit. And that and hiring Tim Beck was one of the worst hires. Well, that and hiring the best man who's running, Bill Davis, was one of the worst hires in the history of all time for Ohio State football to coach linebackers. But I digress. I think that's what Harbaugh's doing. I just don't think he's hired really good staffs to develop his players. What are your thoughts?
So I think you make a couple good points. I want to remind and let the caller know that just called in that I will get to your call in just a second if you call back as soon as I make these points. So your assessment on the coaching front is dead on. That is the best indicator that either assistants go on to better assistant jobs, and if you're talking Ohio State and Michigan, those pretty much don't exist. So they're going to go on and become head coaches, and we've seen Alabama be the poster child for that, and Nick Saban throughout his career. The 2 points that I did not make on Steve Deace's show the other day that I wanted to disagree with him on, but he kept going and we moved on to other points that come to mind right now is, number one, he always says that Ohio State has always had better talent than Michigan. And I certainly disagree from the late 80s into the early 90s.
Good call.
The Elvis Gerbach, Desmond Howard, Ty Wheatley, all those guys we could go through up until the time when Cooper got in about 2 to 3 classes and caught up and surpassed Michigan from a talent perspective. But they're from about 87 to 93 or 4. I certainly would take Michigan's talent.
Yep, you're right, Mark. 80, I would say the first 5 years of the Cooper era, 88 to 92 for sure. And by the way, those were 4 of Michigan's better teams. They went to 4 Rose Bowls in 5 years.
Yeah.
And won 2. That was the last 2 years of the Schembechler era and the years of Gary Nolan. They were better talent-wise.
Yeah, the quarterback play was so much better than what Ohio State had as well.
90 to 90, we were clearly better. Talent was off the side.
The other...
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to 93 to 88, but he had 6 years and 2 finishes in 98. I mean, 95 to 96 are talking to my life because those teams were with talent, especially in 96. The only thing that was the that.
David, we unfortunately haven't heard much of anything you've said for the last 30 seconds. So I'll just finish with this point. I appreciate the call, David. Thank you so much. I'll finish with this point. And if you go back to either here on my channel, I've reposted it, or you go to Michigan Podcast and check out my segment with Steve Dace each and every week called the 10-Minute War. The other point that I have yet to make to Steve that he's cited many times is he sees Michigan's productivity in the NFL draft to be similar to Ohio State's Harbaugh versus Meyer and now Day. And I don't think that that's entirely accurate. When Michigan gets 10 players drafted in the 2020 NFL draft versus Ohio State's 10, they're on completely different planes. There is a difference. And it is shown and it is proven and confirmed every year by the productivity, whether you want to measure it statistically or in Pro Bowls or in just longevity in the league. You can measure it in all sorts of ways. There is no comparison between drafting players in the first couple rounds and drafting players in the 5th and 6th rounds, having those players drafted. So when Michigan produces 10 NFL draft picks like they did in this past spring's draft, and they're all 5th and 6th rounders, that does not compare to the talent level at Ohio State producing 2 of the top 3 players in the draft, 3 first rounders, 4 first rounders, and all top 10 of those players, at least 9 of those players being drafted in the first 3 rounds, I believe. So there's a talent gap there. Top 3 rounds in the NFL draft versus the other 3. It's significant. All right. Got a few calls coming in when Dave was on the line, so please call back. I want to get back to this question by Eli. I thought it was really good, and I don't have the answer for it. So Eli's asking college football. Oh, that would be my name there, Mark Rogers TV, college football. I got a call coming in, but I want to get to that question.
The call will start at the beep.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
This is MTH back at you, buddy. Now I finally have the time that I can tell you to get your paperwork out for you to do your next video.
Oh boy, okay.
And let's go through the list.
Yeah.
Because I've got the standings for college football.
Okay.
So we'll go with 0 losses and maybe 1 loss.
Okay.
To start your collusion here. Cincinnati.
Sure.
No losses. Tulsa Golden Hurricanes. No losses.
Whoa.
They've got 1 loss.
Yes.
Sorry. Notre Dame. 0 losses. Clemson. 1 loss. Sorry, they got beat by
Notre Dame, they're booted. Miami, they're booted. 1 loss. Big 12. Nobody is undefeated. Iowa State, top. They're 5-2 total. And Oklahoma State is 5-1. Kick the Big 12 out. Big 10. Indiana, undefeated. Ohio State, undefeated. Maryland, 1 loss. Northwestern, no losses. Purdue, no losses.
Those two play tomorrow.
Wisconsin,
They've only
no
played
losses,
one game.
but only played one game. Yeah, I know. I'm just throwing that at you.
It might surprise you, Tom, but I do know the standings. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can bring it up.
So what's the point? What's your point? Yeah?
Marshall, 6-0. Who did they play?
Nobody.
And then the FBS Independents, BYU, 8-0.
Mm-hmm.
Liberty, 7-0. Army, 6-1. I just can't make anything out of it. Then you go to the MAC, it just goes bizarre. But I was wanting to see you do a video bringing up the subject of you can read the conference just like where you used to work, because that's the one I use. You can make your whiteboard behind you and you go just black out everybody else and just leave the undefeated teams, or maybe as it gets down to 1 loss, okay, maybe you can add those in, but then you have to weigh the conferences. But I've been thinking about that, especially all day, and then with tomorrow, it's going to evolve a lot of that with Michigan, Wisconsin, and if Michigan beats Wisconsin, then throw Wisconsin out to the lake.
So, Tom, it sounds like what you want out of me is I'm going to get out the whiteboard and I'm going to run through the playoff scenarios. Who's in? Who's still in it? Who we're booting out? We'll lay it all out for you. How's that?
I would just love to see you go back to your whiteboard, because you were always so good the last couple of years doing that. So now I watch you, and today I was just like, man, I need to send you a message, but I didn't want to do it through tweet. So,
well, you can always make it a direct message.
To hear what everybody else in the classroom was.
Tom, you can always hit me up on a DM on Twitter. Just send a direct message to me.
This is not my complaint about anything about your audio or anything like that. I was just hoping to see you bring this subject up, because, even when you go to the Big Ten, we've got like a total of 4, 5 games. You got the SEC with how many games are they playing? Fill up your tea. I'm good with that.
So, Navy Thomas, it sounds like you're remembering the days when I used to go to the whiteboard and I would rank all the conferences and go through all the records and the scores.
What's that board down? Because that doesn't have anything to do with who's getting into the playoffs.
No. We'll get to it. That's a great suggestion. I will cut that video on Sunday. We'll go through one more weekend of games. Some teams might get eliminated this weekend, and then we'll let everyone know where things stand.
I just think the big thing is it's never going to turn into championship system or whatever they want to call it this year. Because, well, if they go to New Orleans to the Superdome, they're not going to let fans go into the games. So, yeah, just me. All right, that's all I wanted to throw at you.
I love the suggestion, Tom.
See if you could do something with that.
We'll do it. I got it written right here.
All right, buddy.
Thanks, Tom. My man, Navy Thomas. He is probably the person that has been on here longer than anyone, would be my guess. And Navy Thomas knows when I used to use this thing all the time. And one of my pet projects that I loved to do was after the season, I would take all the non-conference games between the Power 5 teams, and I would seed all the teams, and I came up with a formula where we could put a weight to every game. Follow me here. If Clemson beats Ohio State, the weight of that game should be higher than if Clemson beat Northwestern. So the seeding caused a formula that I explained, and then I would take the results of all the teams in the Power 5 playing each other, and I built a formula, and I would rank the conferences based on the results on the field. Everybody else does it based on, I think the SEC is the best, and I think maybe the Big Ten's the second best. No, we did it based on the results on the field, and put together a formula that people seem to like. All right, we've got our patrons behind me. That is not all of them. We've got 59 strong. That's probably about listing of about 40, something in that range. So we appreciate all of them. I will get other ones listed who are not currently, but just wanted to pay recognition for them. And they join me for exclusive live streams, watch parties, insider look, and my predictions. Did I mention 16-4 against the spread last weekend? Okay. Yeah, I cannot buy BYU. I cannot get excited about a team. They are doing everything that they possibly can against the schedule. But why should we believe? Why should we believe that BYU, who goes 7-5 or 6-6 every year, why would they be any different this year against a legitimate schedule? They wouldn't. If BYU played the schedule that they play every year, they'd go like 7-5. I will try to find their original schedule because this is not BYU's fault. They had to pull together a schedule of some sort, some reasonable schedule to play when all this went down because they lost all these conferences games. So BYU typically plays one of the 5 weakest schedules in the Power 5. If you consider them a Power 5, some don't, some do. They're kind of lost in the middle. It could be argued that they're a Group of 5 team. It could be argued that they're a Power 5 team. But if you look at BYU's schedule each and every year, it's the oddest schedule. And I make this comment every offseason, and I rank all the schedules. And I didn't do it this offseason because not enough people watch the videos. But I enjoy doing it, but just didn't have the time to pour into 75 videos that nobody was watching. So I evaluate every schedule in the country and I rank them. I make the same comment about BYU's schedule every year. They have the strangest, oddest schedule because this is what happens. They're not Notre Dame, so they can't schedule whomever they want, whenever they want. They're BYU. So before all the conference games start, they're able to schedule really good teams. And typically, because of where they're located, those teams are in the Pac-12. So they're heavy on Washington and UCLA. They're heavy on those games. They also typically get a game or two out of the Big Ten or the Big 12. They dipped into the SEC last year with Tennessee and won that game. And so they've played Mississippi State home and home recently. They've played Michigan State and Wisconsin, beat the Badgers after getting bludgeoned by the Badgers a couple of years ago. They came back and beat them in Madison the next year. So they put together a really strong first 5 games. And then pretty much it's difficult for them to schedule anybody else later in the season because all the conferences are playing their conference schedules. So the back half of BYU's schedule is a lot of Utah State, Wagner. They do slip in Boise State typically in the back half of the schedule. And that's the one big win that they got this year, 51-17. Now we're going to have to see if Boise State's really that good. They did lose their starting quarterback, who was their backup quarterback, so they were down to their 3rd-string quarterback in that game. That's unfortunate because I would have liked to have seen BYU play Boise State's best, but they blew them out, to their credit. But when I'm asked about, or there's a comment in the live chat about comparing BYU, or not even comparing them, just flat out saying that BYU is better than Florida, does anybody in their right mind think that Florida would only beat Texas San Antonio 27-20? Really? Florida, Texas San Antonio. BYU played Texas San Antonio this year, 27-20. Okay, BYU beat Houston 43-26. Seems like a pretty dominant win. I watched that game, almost every play of that game. That game, BYU was losing in the 4th quarter. Does anybody think Florida would be losing to Houston? Houston's not that good. Houston just lost to Cincinnati by 4 or 5 touchdowns. Houston would not be beating Florida in the 4th quarter. No. BYU has beaten Navy, Troy, Louisiana Tech, Texas San Antonio, Houston, Texas State, Western Kentucky, Boise State. And Boise State was ranked 21st. They're not the 21st best team in the country. They're maybe the 40th or 45th best team in the country. So, and then beating North Alabama and San Diego State to conclude the season is not going to prove anything. And it's so odd that BYU is actually going to play after a bye week this week, North Alabama next week. Then they get 2 weeks off and they play San Diego State on the 12th. So no, BYU is not that good. It is always difficult to rank group of 5 teams against the Power 5 teams. I say this every year. If you look at my final rankings, especially, once they play the bowl games, everybody has played 13 games. And generally, I would agree with most coaches' polls and AP polls, even though I slam them to the hilt all the time, every week, with my top 25. That actually makes sense. When you look at the final poll, take any year, AP, coaches' poll, you look at the 18 to 25 slots in the final poll, and you will see the group of 5 teams that are like 11-2 are kind of compared to the 8-5 teams in the Power 5. 8-5 is kind of the cutoff point for being ranked at the conclusion of the season in the top in the Power 5. If you're 9-4 in a Power 5 conference, you're going to be ranked at the end of the season. If you go 8-5, it depends. If you go 8-5 out of the Big 12, you're probably not going to get ranked. If you went 8-5 in the SEC, you probably will be ranked. I think that could bear out. If we took every 8-5 team in Power 5 football over the last 10 years and looked at how many finished in the AP Top 25 final versus which ones didn't, I guarantee there would be a huge swing toward the SEC. I guarantee it. So Eli asked a great question that I don't have the answer to, and I wish I did, and I should. I take it hard when I can't answer a question. So the voice of college football, we should be able to answer all questions. But this one I've not come across, and it has crossed my mind. that what if a team goes 6-2 in a particular conference and they're being compared to a team that went 5-1? So obviously that would be within division play, because aside from the ACC, there are still divisions played this year in the Big Ten, in the Pac-12, in the SEC. So if Wisconsin goes 5-1 and Iowa goes 6-2, yes, who goes to the Big Ten championship game? I would think that in all three divisions that we're discussing, or three conferences, they all play each other. There's your answer. Here we go. This has to be the answer. There's a tiebreaker. They played head-to-head. So if the 6-2 team beat the 5-1 team, even though their winning percentage is not as high, they're still, like, if you follow baseball standings, if a team's 80-62 and another team's 80-61, they are a half game ahead of that. There's that math equation in terms of wins and losses, and that's what you're working with right there. That's the same. Those two teams, if it were baseball standings, would be tied for first place, or in the NFL. So your tiebreaker, even though the winning percentage is different, would be head-to-head. So it's not about winning the conference, it's about winning the division, because we have divisions in every conference that lead to the championship game, except for the Big 12, where they take the top two seeds. So you, again, have that same tiebreaker because everybody plays everybody in the Big 12. Where that could come into play and be an even greater difficulty to determine would be in the ACC. I want so much chaos. I want Miami and Notre Dame to tie. Well, I want a lot more chaos than that. I want these teams losing 2 and 3 games. But if we can't have that, and it's most likely not going to happen for us, I want Miami and Notre Dame to tie for second place, or there to be a 3-way tie, although I think that's pretty clear cut. If Clemson runs the table, Notre Dame loses to, say, North Carolina, Miami runs the table, then they all finish 10-1. Who goes to the ACC championship game? Well, I think it's rather clear cut because Clemson beat Miami and Notre Dame beat Clemson. Miami's 0-1 in that round robin, and the other two are 1-1. Well, Notre Dame's actually 1-0, and Clemson's 1-1. So the two teams with the best common opponents record would be Clemson and Notre Dame. But we are going to have fun dissecting the conference championship weekend, and we're going to have a whole lot of fun picking apart the college football playoff selections. So unfortunately, we're not going to have much time to do that because, of course, the conference championship games will be on a Saturday, and then the next day at noon, we'll have to do a full live stream. We'll bring everybody on. We will watch the selections together, and we will. I cannot imagine a scenario in which we cannot pick them apart. Now, there's one thing. It's one thing to just pick apart just to be devil's advocate, which I can play that. But it's another to say they are not logical in their deduction. They made a mistake. Their job is impossible, meaning the playoff selection committee. Their job is nearly impossible. It played into their hands last year, so it was easy last year for the first time in 6 years. But so I have often defended them to say what they are asked to do is basically impossible. I can always bring up resumes that are good enough to be selected from teams that they left out. I can do that every year. But they have also been very inconsistent in their barometers. in their tenets of what they lean on. First, it was conference championships because of the 2014 scenario. Then in 2015, they started to go toward strength of schedule. And then once that bad loss, that factored in, that started to factor in 2017 and 18, they've gone all over the place. And then they can always bail themselves out by just saying, we select the 4 best teams. 4 best teams. So my one response to that is, we don't know who the 4 best teams are. And I love, it'll happen this year again. I'll get some calls and people will say, well, they just selected the 4 best teams. What does that mean? They don't know who the 4 best teams are. Only God knows who the 4 best teams are. All right. I'm way behind in the chat here. So, if we have conference championship games get canceled, that's going to be, so for obvious reasons, nobody from these conferences have announced what they are having these conversations right now and may have already decided what they would do under these circumstances. But as far as I know, they've not been discussed or announced to the public. And I think we would be discussing that if they were. So they haven't. But I've got to think that there would be some kind of determination that the team with the best record automatically wins the conference. Because they could only back up these games, maybe. They can't back them up, can they? So we're looking at a December 19th championship Saturday. The next Saturday would be December 26th, the day after Christmas. And that date is too close to the college football playoffs. So they can't back up the games unless they get into a situation, I don't even think they could do that. Nope. My man, George, your Gators were just that good on offense. Yeah, we got a UCF Cincinnati game coming up, and we know that our guy Eli is the defender, the staunch defender of the group of 5. And I love that. I love that. Eli, Liberty versus Virginia Tech was a gimme when talking the spread. Virginia Tech being favored by 16.5 was just dumb. Well, there are 1 to 2 games of that type of point spread every week that are upsets. And I don't necessarily think that they're all dumb. I did take Liberty and didn't even think about it, didn't even contemplate it. So I agree with you, Eli. But I don't know if they played again. If we had our 10-game scenario, I would put my money on Virginia Tech winning most of those games, but they didn't when it counted. And Liberty showed up and they made the play at the end. And Virginia Tech and Justin Fuente were not prepared for the scenarios that played out. And they blew it. And we had a conversation with Mike McDaniel. And I posted that video this morning on Virginia Tech football. And we went through the sequence of plays that led to the Hokies' loss. And it was not pretty, and it was not well coached. Oh, so I jumped ahead, unfortunately, in the chat. Cheryl reminding everyone, please hit that like button. That keeps us building the channel. We appreciate that. The super chat's on as well. And also, shop Amazon. Use the link in the description section of any of the videos. As George says, I will earn a whopping 0.0000001%, or maybe a smidge more than that. But you can help us build the channel anytime you shop Amazon. please grab that link, put it somewhere where you'll remember it and find it. It's the same exact shopping experience, and you help us build the channel. Young Kids Midwest, Purdue deserves respect, but I think it's more a culture point. I've got Purdue ranked 12th in the country. And they've got a huge game against Northwestern. King by default 13. But I do think Florida could win championship next year if Kyle comes back and also Pitts comes back. I doubt if Kyle Pitts is going to come back. Maybe Trask. I think Bama, Cheryl, I agree with you, looks better than anyone else. Young Kids Midwest, Northwestern has the defense this year and finally has a quarterback to contend once again in the West. Sure looks like it. They look good. Beat Maryland, Iowa, Nebraska. The Wisconsin game will be huge. And I believe that's coming up next week, I believe. And they've got arguably the best coach in the conference. King by default likes Oregon to run the table in the Pac-12, get into the playoff because Notre Dame will lose to UNC and Clemson. I think it probably has come to that, Young Kids Midwest, that both Georgia and the team up north should probably fold their programs. Shut them down. 503 JM. Mark, love your channel, but I still don't get your top 10 formula. Care to explain? All right. Boy, I love to do this. Okay. So the top 25s that you're used to tracking, those are, of course, based on results on the field to a certain extent, but there is also a huge consideration given, and I mean huge consideration given to what has not occurred on the field, but is simply perception. Okay. We'll take Ohio State for an example this year. Ohio State had not played a game, and one of the two polls still ranked teams that had not yet played, which I think is ridiculous. Now, you can have a preseason poll in which nobody has played, just to say, this is our projection of, among these 55 people that vote, this is the overall projection of the season. And I've released preseason polls in the past. They're my particular rankings. It's not a poll, of course. It's just my rankings of the teams. And I even take exception with people that look at the schedules to determine their rankings before the season starts, because what they're basically doing is they're not ranking the teams, they're almost ranking the schedules. They are making a projection, they are making a prediction of the way it's going to end, not saying these are the 25 best teams in the country from 1 to 25. I don't care who they play, and then we'll allow adjustments in the rankings as they start to play. Okay, once a game is played by everyone that I'm considering, once it's week 1 and it's the Sunday after the first Saturday of college football, I now have something to go by. Okay, there are results on the field. So, in any other sport, pick your sport. The result on the field is all that matters. It doesn't matter what the performance was, doesn't matter what our evaluation is of the talent, or if somebody got lucky or did not get lucky. You don't see that in the NFL standings. You just see wins and losses. That's all that matters. Nothing else matters. It doesn't matter if you won 55-10 or 15-10. Now, there are tiebreakers at the conclusion of the season that determine based on points and point differential that come up about once every 5 years. Okay, that's very rare. But generally and overwhelmingly, professional sports standings and the conference standings in college athletics as well are determined simply by wins and losses. So I take a similar approach as step one, just wins and losses. Okay. Point number two is that because of the landscape of college football and because there are so many teams and because there is such a discrepancy in scheduling and quality of scheduling, and because there is little way to compare teams from different conferences, basically no way this particular season, but little connection between the conferences in a normal season, I second look at the performance on the field. So, for example, if Oklahoma plays Texas Saturday and Oklahoma wins the game in overtime 45-42, well, my evaluation of Oklahoma as a football team, even though that's a win against 0 losses, that's the same exact result as if Oklahoma beat Texas 50-0. So on my first criteria, that's the same exact result. Oklahoma beat Texas. That's all that matters. But we have to evaluate the teams and their performance as well. We can't just rely on the wins and losses. I wish we could. If we had an objective system, if this was the NFL, we could just rely on wins and losses. That's all that matters. This team's 9-2, that team's 8-3. Therefore, this 9-2 team's better than that 8-3 team. We could do that. But we've got too many teams and they don't play each other. They don't not the schedule is not equal. Therefore, we have to evaluate the wins and losses. So the first criteria is an Oklahoma win at 50-0 carries more weight than a Oklahoma win over Texas 45-42 in overtime. Okay, that's second. Criteria number 3 are the opponents. So I already touched upon that to a certain extent with point number 2, but point number 3 is the quality of the schedule. Okay, understand that as the season unfolds, and we get more data points and more information, less assumptions have to be made. But in week 1, we have to make some assumptions. Otherwise, all the 1-0 teams would get ranked. They would be tied for number 1 in the country. If we make no assumptions or evaluations of how good the teams are, then after week 1, all we would do is stack all the 1-0 teams and say they're all tied for number 1 in the country, and then all the 0-1 teams are tied for number 65 in the country. So we do make some assumptions. Now, the more information we get, then the less assumptions we can make, and the more we can rely on the information. Okay. When Indiana beat Penn State in week 1, we thought, that's an excellent win. That's one of the best wins in the country. Well, we're gaining more information on Penn State, so that win is reevaluated each week. I'm reevaluating the Indiana-Penn State win even 8 weeks later. Even on championship weekend, let's say Indiana continues to win and they're in my top 25, that win against Penn State is going to be reevaluated. That win against Penn State the final weekend of the season will look different than it did the next week, because Penn State right now is 0-3. If they continue to spiral and they finish 1-8, then that Indiana win over Penn State is going to be evaluated a certain way. That's going to be much different than if Penn State rights the ship immediately and goes 6-3. So I evaluate, number 1 is just simply the result, the win versus the loss. Point number 2 is the evaluation of the performance on the field. A 50-0 win against Michigan is evaluated as a much better win than if that same team beats Michigan 45-42. Okay. And point number 3 is the quality of the schedule, which gets reevaluated every week because you've added a game that particular week, but you've also need to reassess the previous games that have been played because we have more information on all those teams. Okay. So people go crazy when an Ohio State plays 2 games and they've beaten 2 really bad teams, and I've got them 9th. That does not mean I think Ohio State is the 9th best team in the country. I'm evaluating and I'm ranking based on the resume. Okay? It was either last year or the year before, somebody said, just give us a ranking of the 25 best teams in the country. So I said, sure. And that ranking looked quite a bit different than the rankings that are based on the results on the field. But I believe that the results on the field should be rewarded. Okay. Hopefully I explained that fairly well. I think I've done a better job in the past. There you go. Thank you, sir. We've got Alabama football fan Roll Tide in here along with Samuel Haskins. Good to see you. Still can't beat the UT Utes, though. I believe he's commenting back to the Alabama fan. Of course, we got the Sugar Bowl from 2008. Samuel, appreciate the comment there. Washington is an underrated college football program. 1991 team, one of the best ever. Yeah, it was a tremendous team that split a national championship with Miami. Won the Rose Bowl over Michigan, I believe 34-14. King by default 13. This probably won't happen, but it would be funny if Liberty faced Auburn in a bowl game and Liberty beats them. So he's thinking back to 2017 when UCF beat Auburn. Or Liberty. If Liberty goes undefeated. I wonder how high they could go in the bowl standings. Cheryl, thank you so much. Don't forget to sub and share Mark's video and smash. Just don't hit the like button. Smash that like button. Washington against Oregon all time. Yes, Washington off the top of my head. Yeah, without grinding through the numbers, Washington has had a better football program all time than Oregon. Who would win between BYU and Liberty? I believe BYU is a better football team than Liberty. Case in point. Yes, Liberty had an impressive showing against Virginia Tech. Did they somewhat luck into a win? Yes, somewhat. But all credit goes to Liberty because they put themselves in position to win the game. The game was 35-all with a few seconds left. And yeah, there was a blocked field goal that could have been returned for a touchdown by Virginia Tech that could have handed Liberty the loss. But Justin Fuente called timeout too late. Yes, too late. And Liberty was able to run a play, get a valuable 8 yards to set up their field goal kicker from 51 yards and not 59 yards. And they hit it to win the game. But Liberty, my goodness, Liberty, okay, you talk about a horrendous schedule. Before playing Virginia Tech, the teams that Liberty had faced had a combined record of 5-32. 5-32. And we're not talking about 5-32 against the SEC and the Big Ten and the ACC. We're talking about going 5-32 against Conference USA and the Sun Belt. So should I even go through this? Because in addition to playing a schedule that was 5-32, Liberty also could barely beat those teams. So let's understand this, that they've had like 2 blowouts against horrible teams, and they have barely beaten some really bad teams. So this schedule, up until the Virginia Tech game, is a combined record of 5-32. And Liberty has only beaten these opponents by Western Kentucky, 6, Florida International, 2, UNA, whoever that is, UNA, gonna have to look them up. UNA, they beat by 21. Louisiana Monroe, they did rout by 33. They beat Syracuse by 17. They beat Southern Miss by 21. And so they've got the 2 close wins against Western Kentucky and FIU. Michael, I mean, who has Northwestern played? Yes, Purdue has played Iowa and Illinois, but I feel that people are punishing them for not being able to play Wisconsin. Northwestern has played Maryland, Iowa, who's looking pretty good. Northwestern has played Maryland, Iowa, and Nebraska against Purdue, who has played Iowa and Illinois. So I would rate Northwestern's schedule to be thus far better than Purdue's. And Purdue's missing that game against Wisconsin. But they're playing head-to-head. So
The call will start at the beep.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, I'm making a service call.
Wait a minute. 1 call per show. What you got, George? Oh, we got another call coming in, George. From somebody who's...
Celebrating Veterans Day.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Everybody always...
We certainly want to honor our veterans. So that was a great comment that George made right there. So we appreciate that. But George and everybody else, please, 1 call. And then Navy Thomas, of course, had the special dispensation because he saved the show tonight. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
What's up, Marcus? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, man. Ready for some football for the morning.
Yeah, looks like
later on today.
there's a few games that are going to be played. We're missing 15.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's crazy. I wish I know the Rose Bowl had a lot to do with it from what I understand, but I wish they would just push the games back till February and everybody can get their games in, but that doesn't look like that's going to happen. Because I heard Alabama and LSU probably won't play this year. So, I mean, Alabama's going to smoke them anyway, but it's sad that some of the games we won't be able to see this year.
Yeah, it's too bad.
So, I'm doing my best. I'm about to look at what games I'm picking tomorrow night or tonight, probably later on today. I thought we talked about Virginia Tech and Miami to open, so I've been looking at that game, see what I can tell, see what I can do better. Some reason why I have fun getting, and I know that's a bad thing to say, but $25 is not much to lose when you can win $400 or $500. Football, I was putting crazy stuff on parlay tickets, and I'll miss it by $100. But one day I'm gonna hit it. But it's fun for me sometimes. That's my getaway. But but I like some of the picks that y'all talked about. I just think that Michigan is going to upset Wisconsin. Not because I think Michigan's really good. It just seems like that's going to happen more.
Who you like in Wisconsin?
Yeah, Michigan. upset Wisconsin tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Sure.
I just don't think they should keep playing that there. More.
I understand that. I think I'm losing my feed here. Some people are, unfortunately, I can understand why it would look to be fool's gold that Wisconsin's only a 3.5-point favorite because they're always good, and Michigan's been awful the last 2 weeks.
Yep. What do you think about NC State, Florida State? You think that could be a potential upset? Florida State get up for one game.
What's the point spread on that game?
What is that, Mark?
What's the point spread on that game?
10.5.
Yeah, I haven't made my predictions yet. I got to do that late night tonight. But North Carolina State, they're not playing bad football. They're playing pretty well. Florida State's just, oh my word, they're just, I hate to use the term because everybody uses it, but dumpster fire.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put it like this to you, Mark, and I'm not trying to pick on Florida State. I just think the change, the changing dynamics of football have caused this. Like I think I told you one time before. And look at when LSU got good, Florida State kind of went down. Florida State got a lot of their talent out of Louisiana. Peter Van Ward Dunn, people like that. I mean, maybe that has something to do with it. There's a lot of things that you can look at like that. And then you got Central Florida, South Florida, and Florida International, Florida Atlanta. Thank you, man. And those teams probably would have been, those guys probably would have been like second team helping Florida State depth. But now you can say, hey, I can go to these other schools and be on TV and play and put my skills out there. I mean, that's the same thing to me that happened with Nebraska outside of, I don't know why Nebraska was doing the Big Ten outside of money, but I think that's what also happened to Nebraska. Like, you got outside of your element and these guys, saying, hey, I'll go to this school right here and I'll get on TV and I can play right away. So why should I go to your school? And I think that's what you're seeing with some of these guys right now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Why Florida State shot them. Yes, sir. And I want to make a point about Hudson. Her Street, Jason did a good article about it. He was saying that Clemson doesn't look the same on defense, talent-wise. And he said, a lot of that was due to injury. I thought that was great. A great article by Jason, man. He did a great article on Sports Illustrated. I tell him all the time I read his article. He's a very good writer. I hope people go check him out. I saw him on your show the other day. I ain't have a really good chance to look at it, but I was definitely going to go look at it and see what he was talking about. He's a good guy. But Mark, you have a great night, and you listen to the show and keep on donating.
Thank you so much, DeAndre. We always appreciate it. It's great talking to you.
Yes, sir. You have a great night, Mark.
We had a call coming in, so please call back. Just didn't want to cut off DeAndre there at the conclusion of his phone call. And yeah, it is going to be a priority of ours as we try to build out this business, but revenue's number one because we want to eat and feed the kids and all that sort of thing. So that's number one priority. But to fix the call-in system and utilize the equipment that has been purchased and so forth and so on. So we will give that some time and attention. But right now, I'm grinding about 16 or 17 hours a day producing content. So Jack Greeley says, let's say Notre Dame beats Clemson in the conference championship game. Ohio State and Bama go undefeated. Then that's 3 playoff teams, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Alabama. Okay. Which out of these teams make the playoffs? One loss, Texas A&M, undefeated Cincinnati, undefeated Pac-12. I believe that the committee is going to make a judgment call on which of those three teams is the best team. The team that I would select would be I hate to say it, but this is the year in which there has to be more of a judgment call made about quality of team rather than looking at strictly results and metrics. Because the Pac-12 champion, let's say, is going to be 7-0. The Cincinnati team is going to be 11-0. And there's really not much of a disparity in quality of play between the American Conference and the Pac-12, and to have 11 games played. I think it's going to be an 11-game season for Cincinnati versus, and the way I would do it would be I would stack up Texas A&M, because you almost can't, in a sense, this is one argument, you almost can't penalize Texas A&M for playing what might be the best team in the country, because Cincinnati didn't have to play Alabama, and the Pac-12 champion did not have to play anybody close to Alabama. So what I would do is I would take the schedules of those three teams and I would rank their schedules. I would take the best opponent, then the second best, then the third best, then the fourth best, then on down the line to the weakest opponent of those three teams. And I would start to compare each level of team that they beat and make some kind of a comparison there. But that's a great point. I would tend to go with the undefeated Pac-12 champion, but they've only got 7 games against 12 for Cincinnati. So off the top of my head, I think I go Cincinnati in that scenario. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, I had my lawyers look over this, and they said you have no rules about third and fourth phone calls.
I actually do, George. One phone call. One phone call. Well, what do you have to say, George?
They're exasperating me. I want to talk about my football team, Kyle Trask, the Florida Gators. How can anybody say there's anybody except Alabama standing in our way? Clemson? No. And Travis Etienne doesn't even know to fall down. Come on. What a joke. Miami? No. Not going to get there. Notre Dame? Never going to happen. Ohio State? Okay. Florida versus Ohio State. Florida versus Clemson, maybe. I don't know. We're going there.
George.
You won 16 games and lost 4 last week.
Yes,
and
against
you were
the spread.
Wrong on the Florida game.
I was right on the Florida game. I took Florida to win the game.
Oh, you did, but your guest didn't.
What?
I watched that episode.
Oh, you're talking about the betting guy, Steve Merrill.
Yeah.
I don't know that he made a prediction. I don't know that he made a prediction on the game. I don't remember, but yeah, go back and look at my predictions. Add them up. 16-4 against the spread. Patreon,
That's
folks. 16-4 against the spread. If you
didn't parlay 8 teams last week, I'm sorry for you. You could have just freaking gotten rich.
So I'm going to do the math for everybody. That if you bet $100 on those 20 games last week, you would have lost $400 on the 4 that I missed. But the 16 other ones would have made you $91 per game. That's roughly $1,400. You would have made about a little over $1,000.
Right. Hey, people need to understand this. This doesn't happen every week.
What? My predictions?
No, you can't go 16-4 every week.
No, absolutely not. I only say that I hit somewhere in the upper 50s, close to 60% almost every year.
Right. Like either you break even or you win. It's not like you lose. I agree. That's 50% or better. That's a good deal.
Well, because Vegas takes more than what you spend, you have to hit about close to 53% against the spread to start to make money. And I hit about 58, 59% consistently.
Is there any possible way Arkansas could cover the spread versus Florida?
Sure.
17 points. Do you think so?
Absolutely, I think so. I haven't made a pick on it yet, but sure. Arkansas is playing everybody close. They came within 11 points of Texas A&M last week. 2 weeks ago, they beat Tennessee. They beat Tennessee by 11.
You know what? You're right. That's a problem. The referees scare me. They can make that game go any way they want it to. Good point. All right. Better parlay. Pick 3 teams. I love parlays.
My rules here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, are falling apart. This is the third call from George. Third call.
I forgot what I called for, but it was really important, whatever it was. I hope I remember next time I call you.
All right, George.
God, look, it was so important. It was about Alabama or something, but I'll think of it and write it down and mention it next time.
You can talk to everybody in the chat about it.
All right. You're right. I'm going back to the chat.
All right, George. Our rules mean nothing here. Sid Irish, we love your contribution here. The last thing in the world we want is a 6. I think you mean team playoff. No, that doesn't work. And there's probably 3 to 4 people in the chat that have called me with the same suggestion, and they can tell you that I laid their argument to waste and explained why a 6-team playoff does not work. I understand on the surface that you just want to get all the conferences in. We should have an 8-team playoff. Here we go with another one. Oh, I think we already saw that one. We got that one in, Jack. James Scott. Selecting the 4 best teams is based on individual conjecture. So, for example, last year, at the end of the season, the selection committee had its easiest task that they've had in these 6 years. They had 3 undefeated teams. They had Oklahoma with 1 loss as a conference champion to compare to Oregon with 2 losses as a conference champion. Easy. Selection, done. We're good. If they sat in that room for more than 3 minutes, more than, 30 seconds, they should all be run out of there. But I'm sure it was like a 4-hour meeting still. Anyway, that was cut and dry, plain and simple. But were those the 4 best teams in the country? I think not. And I said it that week. People said, did they get it right? Obviously they did. I said, yes, they got it right from the standpoint of who earned the 4 spots. But was Oklahoma the 4th best team in the country? Well, we soon found out, no. And most of us knew that before the playoff was played, that Oklahoma was not the 4th best team in the country. Alabama was the 4th best team in the country. If Alabama would have shown up at the Superdome to play, I think that game was at the Superdome, was it? No, that game was, I think, at the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, the LSU-Oklahoma game. Regardless, if Alabama shows up to that game, is the score going to be 49-14 at half? No. It would have been a really good game, as it was in Tuscaloosa. So David's saying a 1-loss Notre Dame with the loss coming in a close game to Clemson gets in. I agree. Unless there's a difference between who should get in, meaning whom would I select, versus what's going to happen. How are they going to look at it? David, you've got a great point. I think that that's reasonable to think that's the direction they would go. I would put in a Pac-12 champion that's undefeated over a Notre Dame team that lost to Clemson in the conference championship game, because I think there's a reason we play the games on the field. There should be. Otherwise, again, if we're just throwing 13 people in there just to make a call on who the 4 best teams are, then they really need to revamp it, because they didn't select the 4 best teams last year. They didn't select the 4 best teams in 2018. They didn't select the 4 best teams in 2015. They didn't select the 4 best teams in 2014. They may not have selected the 4 best teams in 2016. Okay, in 2014, if you're just selecting the 4 best teams, say, Mark, select the 4 best teams. We're going to give you all the power. I'm going to select Ohio State, Oregon, Alabama, and TCU. You just said you don't have to justify it in any way. It doesn't have to make sense, just the 4 best teams in the country. Bam. Okay? Florida State, you went 14-0. You went 13-0. And you won a bunch of ugly games against bad teams. Now, should Florida State have been selected? Absolutely. They earned it. But were they one of the 4 best teams? Not based on my estimation. And that was proven out in losing by 39 points at the Rose Bowl. 2015, I would say, again, if you're giving me all the power to select the 4 best teams, I say, sorry, Michigan State. I hate to do this to you, because you earned the playoff spot, beating Ohio State in Columbus, and then going to win the Big Ten championship game. But you know what? They're giving me the authority. Sorry, Ohio State's still better. They go to the playoff instead of you. And the 4 teams in the playoff would be Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State. And you know what? I don't even know if Oklahoma I would have selected. I'd have to go back and really look. I think Stanford I'd put in there. I think my 4 best teams in the country in 2015 would have been Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Stanford. Again, Michigan State earned it, but they lost to a 5-win Nebraska team. They only beat Michigan because Michigan couldn't fall on a punt. They had to flip the ball in the air and give them this ridiculous miracle win. They beat Iowa, who didn't play anybody. They beat Iowa by that much. They had a goal line stand, or did they score the game-winning touchdown? Now I'm forgetting which way it went. But Michigan State scored the game-winning touchdown. Yeah, on 4th down, they barely made it, 16-13, against an Iowa team that went to the Rose Bowl and got completely destroyed. It was 35-0 at half. Michigan State was not anywhere close to one of the 4 best teams in the country. So 2014 would have been different. 2015 would have been different. 2016, Alabama, Clemson. Washington was not one of the 4 best teams in the country. Washington played a horrendous schedule. Their best non-conference game was against Rutgers. They lost to USC by 2 scores at home. In 2016, the 4 best teams in the country were probably Alabama, Clemson. Did Ohio State deserve it? Not really. It was probably the 4 best teams in the country in 2016, where it was really close between Penn State, Ohio State, Oklahoma, USC. I would really want to run the numbers, but I would probably go in 2016 with Alabama, Clemson, Penn State, and USC. 2017, 4 best teams in the country. I'll say they got it right. 2017, if you're just 4 best teams in the country, again, don't have to defend it anyway, I'll say they got it right. Ohio State had the argument, playing all the really good teams that they beat, won the Big Ten, but they did lose head-to-head to Oklahoma at home. So Oklahoma gets that nod. Alabama proved that they were one of the 4 best. They won the whole thing. So, yeah, 4 best teams in the country in 2017. They got it. They got it that one time. 2018, Ohio State's better than Oklahoma. They should have been in the playoff. But I understand why Oklahoma made it. They avenged their loss, and their loss wasn't as bad as Ohio State's loss. I totally get it. But the Big 12, not as good as the Big 10. Ohio State had better wins. But I get it. But if you just, again, giving me the power to select the 4 best teams in 2018, you know what? Maybe I dump Notre Dame even though they're undefeated. Maybe it's Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, Oklahoma. Okay, 2019, it's LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama. Who are the 4 best teams right now in 2020, based on what I've seen? Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Notre Dame. Florida, Notre Dame, Florida, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Florida, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Florida, Notre Dame, Notre Dame. Marcus, we have cut a number of videos. We have talked to Leah Musgrave at texags.com and talked about A&M's shot at the playoff many times. I don't remember hearing anybody talk about Texas A&M making the playoff before. I was talking about this like 4 weeks ago. As always, someone will be upset after. Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about a team being upset like they're going to lose a game. Okay, somebody's going to be upset. Yes. Oh, there's going to be more people upset, I believe. Who was legitimately upset last year? Nobody. 2018, Ohio State. 2017, Ohio State, UCF. 2016, Penn State. Maybe USC. Not really. 2015, Stanford, Ohio State. 2014, TCU, Baylor. Florida wasn't good. Georgia's a dumpster fire. Well, for all the compliments you give me, 503 JM, Georgia's not a dumpster fire from a talent standpoint, but yeah, they're dysfunctional right now. They have a lot of issues. And for the life of me, this whole quarterback situation with Georgia is ridiculous. How Kirby Smart cannot see the obvious. He's becoming the Les Miles of this decade. If I was Kirby Smart, I would say, you know what? I am running one of the 5 best programs in the country, but I don't have the guy. So you know what? I'm going to take a slice of humble pie here, and I can continue to just kill it in everything else. I'm going to go out, and I'm going to tell this university that we need to spend a ton of money on the best quarterback coach anywhere. Go get that guy. Bring him in. Thank you, Swampy McGee. We hope to keep it up. Yeah, I see a comment in here that doesn't belong, but I won't kick out that person. Our guy, Blake Serafini. Blake, excuse me if I'm incorrect, but this is the first time I remember ever seeing your name in the live chat. So I want to say, welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. You're saying my team, I don't know who that is, has been the most disappointing team in college football this season, so I've been looking at the next recruiting class. So I'm going to guess that's LSU, or maybe it's Penn State. Those would be the 2. those have to be the two most disappointing teams in college football this season. Yeah. Adam's Apple, most explosive offense ever, scored a point per minute, punted on first down. They were that good, y'all. NCAA 14 in real life. I wonder who that is. Okay. Yeah, folks, I need to be a little bit stronger on the phone calls, so I appreciate it. Yeah. Basically, we get the calls in. If it's a great conversation, that's one thing, but if people are waiting, I want to get those people off. We want to move in and get through as many calls as possible. And then if the calls just die, yeah, I need to be a little more cutthroat, move them on. Ethan, we should not have any auto bids per conference. Jabari, if you have an 18 playoff, the Sun Belt, the Conference USA, and the MAC won't get in because of the level of play. So basically, my thought is if we've got an 18 playoff, then we go with the Power 5 conference champions, and then we've got 3 wild cards that I would come up with a formula. I wouldn't have a bunch of knuckleheads decide, but I would come up with a formula that would not be difficult in determining the teams that deserved it based on the strength of schedule and their performance, of course. Now, if we went to a 16-team playoff, then we include the group of 5, and we include all 10 conference champions and 6 wild cards. And you've got almost an NCAA basketball tournament type format where are those 16 teams the 16 best teams in the country? No, it's understood. They're not the best 16 in the country. They're like the best 5 certainly, and then the wild cards. You're looking at the 11 best teams in the country. Then you're looking at a big drop off to like maybe the 25th best team in the country, and then like the 40th or 50th best teams in the country. But it's a way to do it, and I think it would be fun.
The call will start at the beep.
And you would have the best of both worlds. You would give everyone an opportunity, meaning every conference, but you would also be taking the 11 best teams in the country and getting them in the playoff. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, who's on the line.
Hey, Mark, how are you?
Good.
Hey, Mark, just one quick thing. I'm sorry, I called him for a second time. But
we got David back on here for a second time. Oh my goodness. My rules have been shot to hell.
Real quick, Cincy Hakapatuka ruined the 95 Buckeyes, and I hated it. And Sean Spring slipped in 96, and
Sure.
that was horrible.
Yep.
I just have to say that. And by the way, last thing, Mark, take Illinois -7 tomorrow against Rutgers. I'm waiting for your Patreon tips. 16-4. Do it again this weekend, buddy, because I got to pay rent.
Whoa. Don't put that on me. No. Thanks, David.
Saying, in Mark Rogers, I trust.
Oh my goodness, please don't.
All right. Well, I'm gonna look for your pick. I'm gonna call you tomorrow. Hey, you run on a live stream tomorrow after the early games?
I am contemplating doing a Miami live stream because of traffic tomorrow after, because they play at noon. So that's where I'm leaning at this point, and then we'll do another one late.
Okay. I'll hit you back tomorrow.
Thanks,
Just let me
David.
call in and clarify that.
I appreciate it. See ya. Oh, yeah. Oh, man. That's what I'm going to get for pounding home that 16-4. When you go 16-4 against the spread, that doesn't come around too often. So I gotta throw those out there. I am only hitting about, I'm still making money. I would still be making money for everyone overall this season, but I'm a few percentage points behind where I would like to be. My goal is to hit 60% against the spread. And to all of you who don't follow my predictions, I'm not putting any time and effort into this. I basically go like this. I call up the schedule and I just go, oh, Purdue Northwestern -2. Yeah, okay. I used to take like a couple hours, and I've done this certain football seasons, and I've really matched things up and really looked at things and done score comparisons against common opponents and all that sort of thing. And it's helped. It helps. It does help to have a system. And I have had a system in the past. We've got quite the debate about what the Midwest is in the live chat. And we're going back to World War II now. Some Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Following, of course, December 7th. All right, we seem to be coming off the rails here. Well, I believe it is time. I believe that time has come. That time has come to make my predictions. So I'm going to go work on that. We are looking at what? 1:33 a.m. Eastern time. So I got to make my predictions. Got to get this place in order, get set for a big college football Saturday, be looking for the notifications. So I hope everyone here is subscribed. Please subscribe. Consider the super chat. The reason I put that up, and in addition, it is also advantageous if you go to Venmo, PayPal, or Cash App and just search Mark Rogers TV and contribute there, because this is all I got. This is all of it right here. Right here, this is all of it. 19 years at ESPN, gone. Resigned, done, handed in the resignation letter on October 11th, so it's been a month. Right here. This is all of it. So this is all about revenue. It's about college football. It's about talking to you, but it's got to generate revenue. So I'll be pounding forward on multiple channels. Some of you have already picked up on that. We've got a Michigan channel now. We've got a Nebraska channel, Miami, Ohio State, Texas, SEC, USC, Oregon. So please subscribe to all those channels. We want to get those up to 1,000 subs so we can monetize those channels. And as soon as those are monetized, I will be doing exclusive live streams over there, like the Ohio State live stream could be over there. And we've got all sorts of things that I met with a marketing woman today. I shouldn't say it. Sounds like I'm sexist, doesn't it? Marketing person today. She happened to be a woman. So I met with a marketing person today who is just amazing, and it gives me a lot to think about. So there are goals to be set and revenue to be made, sponsors to be had. So if you own a business and you produce something that you think would benefit from being highlighted here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, and with our 22,000 subscribers here and 41,000 overall, then please let me know. You can send an email, contact me anytime at MarkRogersTV@gmail. And also keep in mind that if you know of anyone out there that you think would be a great sponsor for us, please contact those people. If you've got a friend or a family member that maybe is local to the Gainesville area and they would want to sponsor all of our Florida Gators content, that we produce and does very well on our channel. That's an example right there. Do you live close to Seattle and want to sponsor a Washington show? Absolutely. We'll do Washington Huskies football and do a weekly live stream. We now have the template in place, and the template is that somebody came to me and said, Mark, please do a Nebraska show. And I said, well, this is now the full-time business, the full-time deal. I have to be earning money while I'm working now. I can't just be on here for the hell of it at 2 o'clock in the morning talking college football. I have to make money because this is it. So I said, any team-specific show, any show, period, that is a designated show has to be sponsored. So what did this person do? They wanted a Nebraska show on, so they went out, boom! Within 2 or 3 days, they got a sponsor for the show. Bam. Happened just like that. Amazing. So I will sit here and do live streams every day, all day, if we've got these sponsorships to back it up. So please do your best to brainstorm about who could possibly sponsor any particular show, whether that just be a call-in show, a general show, or again, if there's a direct tie where in your part of the country, your town, you're connected to such and such football program, meaning you not personally, but you know of businesses that are in that area that would be natural fits to sponsor a team-specific live stream. Texas live stream, Oklahoma live stream, Purdue live stream, whatever it is. I would love to do it. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Thank you so much, sir. Who is that? Ryan. Ryan, thank you so much for the contribution. I appreciate that so much. Says, thanks, Mark. You're the best. Best college football content on YouTube. Go Buckeyes. Ryan, if you haven't already, we've got an Ohio State channel. Please check it out. And I will be completely transparent and honest and forthright about this. Most of that is repurposed content from our Ohio State show here. But now that it's being monetized, which thank God just happened the last couple of days, that it pushed through Google and it is now monetized. I made all of $4.49 this week on my Ohio State platform. But we will do unique content that will be Ohio State only over there. All right. Thank you so much. Cheryl's reminding somebody to email me. I'm at MarkRogersTV@gmail. It's the easiest thing to remember. Anybody here can talk to me, give me suggestions, give me recommendations, give me requests, ideas. There's a couple of people in particular that have been an enormous help by seeing things you guys all put together, have so many more better ideas than I do as one guy who just likes to talk about college football all the time. So when it comes to marketing and branding and sales and operations and all those things, and I want to thank everyone. We only have 37 on the line, and I love it when I've got like 175 or 180, as we do on Saturdays, because I'll repeat this when we've got a larger audience, to basically say thank you that you guys put up with my crappy call-in system. So I apologize for that. I thank you for being patient. Nobody complains about it. Very, very, very seldom does anybody complain about it. Again, I have bought equipment for it to be installed and done correctly. I've run tests. I just can't get it. So we'll have to work on that. But during the season, it's just crazy. It's going to be crazy all the time, every day. So thank you so much for that. Swampy McGee's just touting this 16-4, man. I got to tell you, I'm going to have to back that up. Though, let's say there's 20 games tomorrow. I am good with 12-8. 12-8. If I can do 12-8 tomorrow, I'm on that 60% line. So we will do our best because I had a couple rough weeks before that. But man, 16-4, you got to get that out there. All right, thank you so much, everyone. We got Jordan here, and again, for anybody that I've missed in the live chat, I appreciate all of you. Again, appreciate all that you do. Ryan, again, thank you so much for the contribution right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Keep that bell open for the notifications. Keep it turned on. I will let you know what we're doing tomorrow night, but we will have a Miami, Virginia Tech instant analysis call-in show after the game. And we will also do our typical prime time deal. Dollar Shave Club. We'll give that. Okay. 503 JM. So if you listen to my spiel that I just finished, a special on Oregon. So sports advertising, it's a gold mine out there. So there you go. Give me a sponsor. Give me some advertising for that particular special or a weekly Oregon live stream, and I'm right there for you. All right. We'll see you all tomorrow. Enjoy the games, and we'll be back on live to take your calls right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I got to make those picks first, Cheryl. Thank you, Cheryl. Cheryl moderated this live stream all by herself.